Ciao amici, and welcome back to Experience Italy with Friends. Today we're talking about our favorite topic, food, but not in the way you might expect. Italian cuisine isn't just about what's on the plate. It's about history, tradition, family, and a way of life. So much so that it's recently been recognized by UNESCO as an Intangible Cultural Heritage. In this episode, we're going inside Italian food culture, why it's so different, why it tastes better, and why it matters so deeply here. And we're joined by American chef Matthew Cook, who moved to Italy over a decade ago and now teaches Italian cuisine and wine in Florence, along with hosting hands-on cooking experiences in his hometown of Lucca. He brings a thoughtful perspective on what really makes Italian food, well, so Italian. So if you love Italy, travel, and food, this episode is definitely for you. Let's get started. Andiamo! Experience Italy with Friends is a travel and lifestyle podcast where we will explore our favorite destinations and hidden gems, share key travel tips and cultural insights, and provide real-time updates about our move to this remarkable country. Join me, Tanya Razzo, an Italian travel expert and founder of Amici Vacations, and my Italian husband and producer, Davide Razzo, on a journey that is sure to inspire you and prepare you to create immersive and authentic experiences of your own in the beautiful country of Italy. Ciao, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Tanya, and as always, I'm here with my husband and co-host, Davide. Well, Davide, that was a fun holiday version of our theme song. When did you throw that surprise together?
Ciao a tutti and welcome. Yeah, I thought I would have some holiday fun to finish out the year before we head out on an extended break.
Well, I loved it. Wow. I can't believe this is the end of season 2 already.
Yes, but we're finishing up with a good episode. So if you've been listening to us for a while, this week's topic should come as no surprise.
Exactly. We love food, really love food. I mean, we're full on foodies. And honestly, it's one of the reasons we moved to Italy in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, food is not just something to eat here, It's deeply part of the Italy's culture. It's at the heart of everything, I would say.
And lately I've been having some great conversations with some local chefs that I partner with, around why we believe it's so important to include a hands-on food experience for clients. And it's not just about eating well. It's about experiencing a local market, cooking together, sharing a meal. That's where you really start to understand the culture.
And then, perfect timing, UNESCO announces that Italian cuisine is officially recognized as an intangible cultural heritage.
Which is wild, and kind of amazing, First, the timing, but because it's the entire cuisine being recognized, not just one dish or tradition. So, between that announcement, our own obsession with food, and some great conversations we've been having lately, this episode basically wrote itself.
Yeah, I know. Well, it was meant to happen, right, Tanya?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, but before we jump into today's episode, let's do a quick life update. Because even when things slow down a bit, life here still finds a way to surprise us.
Yeah, these past couple of weeks haven't been as crazy busy, but they've definitely been meaningful. We've officially started getting into the holiday spirit, visiting the local Christmas market here in Montepulciano, and then heading over to Castiglione del Lago with our friends Mike and John.
Yeah, Castiglione del Lago was fun. I mean, they had this big Christmas tree on the lake. They had a market along the shore, light shows, food, vin brûlé. I mean, it was a really nice Christmassy vibe.
Yeah, it's such a great way to ease into the season. But, the biggest moment by far was when the Olympic torch came through Montepulciano.
Yeah, when it finally got here.
Yeah, in true Italian style, it arrived late, but it was worth waiting for. I didn't expect to be that emotional about it, but seeing the torch for the first time here in our town, it really got me.
You were very excited.
Yeah, I really was. I've never seen an Olympic torch in person before. Never. It's always been different parts of the world. And I love Italy so much. Seeing all the regions being showcased in this torch journey just really warms my heart. Italy in the spotlight. I'm here for it.
Yeah, I know. We waited for a couple of hours and then all of a sudden the whole town was there in Piazza Grande. It's like somebody sent like a mass text message to everyone. So,
It's how it always works here. And it was so fun. And then, staying on the theme for today's episode, we had a pretty special dinner at home. We hosted a local chef, Niccolo Duchini.
yes, former MasterChef contestant, semi-finalist. No pressure at all.
None. We first met Niccolo during the Brevio when he was the chef at our Contrada, then connected again when I learned he cooks locally and hosts cooking classes. He invited me to lunch and we returned the favor and invited him over for dinner.
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous, Tanya.
A little?
Okay, a lot. But he was so kind. He told me, hey, don't cook too much food. Just keep it simple and, cook with love.
And you decided to make beef Wellington, the
Yes.
hardest dish possible.
I was just like, I couldn't just cook like an Italian recipe or something like that, or something simple. I had to go all out. So that's why I went with a beef Wellington. And it was Christmas. So that's why. So, and, it turns out that beef Wellington was one of Niccolo's first dishes. He challenged himself in the beginning of his career. Did you know that?
Yeah. That was so coincidental and it just must be fate, like a sign. So, it ended up being this really fun full circle moment. And even though we had already recorded our interview with Matthew for today's episode, having Niccolo over gave us even more perspective.
He said something really interesting that caught me. He said, Italians don't go out to eat very often. One, because they think they can do it better at home.
True.
Yeah. And two, because meals at home are about, connection, sharing food, talking, taking time. It's more intimate.
No, exactly. It's not just about the food. It's about being together and you're much more casual at home and you open up. And that really ties into today's topic. Food here isn't just something you consume. It's how relationships are built, how culture is passed down, how people connect. So it felt like the perfect appetizer, so to speak.
Okay, well, before we bring Matthew in for the main course, let's provide a bit of a history about Italian food. Some people think of Italian food as being fancy, but the truth is, most of it comes from very simple origins. For centuries, Italy was poor. People cooked with what they had, what grew nearby, and maybe what they could afford.
Exactly. A lot of the most famous dishes today started out as cucina povera, peasant food. Simple ingredients, nothing wasted, and recipes passed down through families.
Yes, like bread, beans, pasta, vegetables, olive oil. Meat was a luxury, so when you had it, you used every part. That's why you see so many slow-cooked dishes and sauces that build flavor over time.
And, geography plays a huge role too, which is why food changes so dramatically as you move from region to region in Italy.
Exactly. In the north, the climate is colder, so you see more the usage of butter, cream, rice, polenta, and cheeses. Think of risotto, hearty pastas, and rich sauces.
Yeah, and then in central Italy here, especially places like Tuscany and Lazio, it's all about balance. Olive oil, bread, beans, vegetables, simple pasta dishes. The food is really very rustic, but very intentional.
And in the south, the sun changes everything. You have tomatoes, eggplants, citrus fruits, olives, seafood. The flavors are brighter, lighter, and after a little bit bolder, like spicy.
Love it. But what I love is that Italian cuisine didn't come from one single tradition. It evolved from hundreds of regional kitchens. Every region, every town, even every family brought something to the table.
Exactly. Italy wasn't unified until 1860. So for centuries, each region cooked its own food, spoke its own dialect and followed its own traditions. That's why people still say Roman food or Sicilian food, not just Italian food.
And that's why food here feels so personal. Recipes aren't just dishes. They're family history, local identity, and memories passed down through generations.
And that's really why UNESCO recognized Italian cuisine. But I have to disagree because as we are speaking of, there is no such a thing as Italian cuisine. And we'll get to it later on. So, but, they didn't do it because of one famous dish, but because of the relationship Italians have with food. They respecting ingredients, they cooking with the seasons, and then taking time. Food is how we take care of people.
Yeah, it's how people connect here. Meals aren't rushed, they're shared. Eating together is part of daily life, not something reserved for special occasions. You sit, you talk a lot, you share. Food is really how Italians show love. Like I love when we go visit your parents and your mom puts so much time and energy when we are there that I feel like we get the special treatment, but that's how she shows love. And that's why eating at home is still so important. It's intimate, it's meaningful, you go all out.
Once you experience that, not just eating Italian food, but understanding how Italians lived around the food. So the culture really clicks.
Yes, and that's exactly why we wanted to bring our special guest into this conversation today. Someone who lives and teaches this culture every day. Matthew Cook is an American chef who moved to Italy over a decade ago. He teaches Italian cuisine and wine in Florence, along with hosting hands-on cooking experiences where he lives in Lucca. He focuses on helping students and travelers understand food the way Italians do. Not just what's on the plate, but everything around it.
So let's bring him in.
So I guess first, Matthew, welcome to Experience Italy with Friends, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to chat with you. I guess before we dive into the nitty-gritty of the episode, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where your love of food began, and how you ended up in the hospitality business here in Italy.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having me. It is quite the honor and a pleasure. My name is Matthew Cook, and I'm a chef. I've been a chef over the last 20 years, and no, it's not a pun or a gag. My last name is Cook, and
I had to tell Davide that. I'm like, we have to point out the obvious. I'm sure you hear it so much. Matthew Cook is a cook.
This is the elephant in the room that I like to, bring to the forefront at the very beginning of any and all meetings, or else people just think that, I'm playing a trick or a gag on them and I'm just doing it for fun. It is funny. Yeah, my last name is Cook, and I tell people all the time that, it was destiny, that I had to follow this lifestyle, but, it just makes my life a lot easier. I've been, ever since I was 16, I've always worked with food, always in the restaurant food business. I'm born and raised in California, Northern California, in a little town called Placerville, between Sacramento and South Lake Tahoe. I pretty much lived there until I was about 20 before I went to Le Cordon Bleu, a French culinary school in Pasadena, Los Angeles, where I studied the French cuisine for my time there. And in school, I was able to study abroad for my externship. And I was proposed two possibilities, or Spain or Italy. Italy came up.
Even though it's a French school. It's a French school, but they wanted you to go to Spain or Italy.
Yeah. I chose the French schooling because the French, when we talk about the culinary cuisine, they are very meticulous. They are machines. They are precise. You want to learn the basics of anything and everything that goes into cooking. I feel like that's the best way to understand the roots and understand the basics, because they're very straightforward, hard-nosed people, but they know their basics, and I liked that aspect of it. Anyways, when we're talking about the externship, my possibility came up. Italy came up first. I chose it. I came to a little town called Montagnoso, which is in the northern part, coastal side of Tuscany, by Massa Carrara, where the famous marble comes from.
Yep.
At a relancetto called Il Bultaccio. And I worked there for 4 months, 3.5 months. There, just, immersing myself every single day. We worked, doing whatever we could, from cleaning, I don't know how many tons of pallets of fish. I cleaned in my 3 months. At that point, I think that's where I really, first got my eyes open to things outside of the United States when I was 20 at that time. It was really, really cherished experience. it ended. I had to go back because I graduated. At that time, I had to choose, what I wanted to do. So I decided to move down to San Diego. I worked in San Diego for 5 years. At that time, I worked at 3 different places between a really high-end golf resort, a fine dining, classic Western, let's say California-style restaurant, and then finally at another really in Chateau, Rancho Valencia in La Jolla area. Loved it. It was great building experience. And I decided, when I was 26, I really wanted to go back to Italy. They was really starting to get an itch for me to come back. Never really, wanted to pull the trigger. And then one day I was like, okay, you want to do it? Just do it. So sold my car, sold my house, left my amazing job and not knowing anyone.
Wow.
Literally. I went back to Il Bottaccio. They welcomed me with open arms and I just moved here.
We talked a lot about moving to Italy on our podcasts. And with anyone we talked, and we had also our why, So everybody has its why. Why do you move to Italy? What was your why?
Yeah, what made you finally pull the trigger and say, I want to move to Italy?
Why I wanted to move back here, or why I wanted to move here, was because of the culture, because of the food scene, because of, how the Italians, or what I had perceived, at least, my short time being there, not just revolved around food, but how food revolved around them. And that's what I wanted to know more. And that's what I wanted to discover more. And the only way I was going to be able to do that was to move there.
So then tell us, you were schooled in French, and I love the French cuisine and the discipline of it. But how did that then translate to Italy and what you loved about Italy for its food?
Let's say, studying in French cuisine, and I talked about the good things about the French cuisine I liked, and then, not bad things, or the things that I didn't really care for about that, was because the French cuisine is very similar to the, let's say, more or less the American cuisine, in the sense of it's super heavy, sauce driven, fat butter driven, spices, the complexity of it, the denseness of it. And I was fed up with it. And I was like, oh, okay, I need to change. And I think I did like a 180 from things that were so heavy and complicated and dense to a cuisine that it was the complete opposite. The simplicity, the elegance, low ingredient, low hassle and stress cuisine.
Okay, well, let's fast forward a little bit. So you're here, you're adapted, and tell us what you do now. So you teach as well as you cook.
Yeah, like I said, I've always worked in restaurant businesses, and now over the last 3 years, I'm a professor at a private university in Florence, Lorenzo de Medici, where I teach a couple classes of food and wine. One is food, wine, and pairings, and another one that's called Current Trends in Italian Cuisine. And that's pretty much where I open up the blinders to kids who have no idea about the food world, anything and everything. The basics of food loss, food waste, 0 kilometer, farm to fork, diets, origins of diets, not what we think about diets now. Mm-hmm. That's been a lot of fun. I live and reside in Lucca, where I am a private chef. I do private lessons. I do lessons with kids, which I'm very fond of. I do private dinners, events, and I wanted to break out of the chain of the restaurant life where, it's an never-ending cycle of go in, do the same prep, same execution, clean up, go home, and then tomorrow you do it all over again. I wanted to break free from it, and the only way I could do it was to follow the private chef life.
That's awesome.
Wow. So I moved like 25 years ago to the US. And what I noticed when I was in the US was the food. It tasted very different than what I was used to eating here in Italy or in Switzerland, because I grew up in Switzerland. But what already, like the difference between Switzerland and Italy was already a little bit of a difference. So as a chef, on your perspective as a chef, why is that?
I've come more to know this almost like repetitive question ever since starting at the university, which I get a new wave of students every semester. And they always tell me this. They're like, why does it taste so much better? And I'm like, well, and then me thinking back like to 11 years ago when I actually moved here, and I'm like, oh yeah, I thought about that too. I had the same thoughts. And the reason is because the freshness. The reason is because here in Italy, obviously, I mean, it pairs the apples between Italy and the United States with the size, population, and so on and so forth. We don't have to mass produce things. And so we are allowed to, or they are allowed to, let the fruits and the vegetables grow and ripen on the plant, on the vine, in the ground, as long as possible before they're able to be picked and to be brought to the market store to be taken from there and taken home and then to be consumed. So there's less travel distance and more ripening on where it should be ripened, which that's where all the flavor comes from, because it comes from them taking the nutrients from the ground. And so,
So what else has shocked you about the ingredients here in Italy? I guess which one ingredient was maybe like an aha moment once you tried the Italian version?
One ingredient that kind of just changed my outlook on everything was, the simplicity of the zucchini flowers. When zucchini flowers are starting to become in season at the beginning of spring and when those summer times get hit hard, is stuffing them, frying them, putting them in a risotto, putting them in a pasta sauce from the Vibrance. But also I've just never eaten them or never have thought about eating them or consuming them. And when you find them here in the markets, they look like they're presented to you like in a
delicatesse,
boutique, like flower shop, and it's truly a beautiful sight and an even better experience to eat. And so when I started to eat zucchini flowers, that's when my aspect on kitchen life and food ingredients kind of changed. And you're like, oh, okay, all right, this is where I can go to a different level. So
yeah. I think you're right. I mean, like the zucchini flowers, very typical. I mean, I've never seen zucchini flowers at any American markets. Maybe at the farmer's market or anything. But now let's go the opposite. Are there any ingredients that Americans buy that Italians never would touch?
I can tell you this is that you will never see any Italians buy, and they are in shops everywhere. This is the only thing I can think of is the when you go into shops and you see the dried pastas, and then you see the dried pastas that are shaped in very different shapes, very funny shapes. Not allowed to divulge too much into the shapes and forms, but I feel like there are certain types of dried pastas that are made only for foreigners that I've never seen any Italians buy. Because they're like, that. What? Why are you buying this stamped, shaped, formed differently pasta? Yeah. I mean, that's like the only thing that I can think of that foreigners would buy that Italians don't.
I can think of one that came to mind. I think Italians would never buy shredded mozzarella.
There you go.
That is a big, or cheese in general.
Our Kraft Parmesan cheese in a can.
Yeah, that to me, what I see, like
it's in a green bottle.
Yeah, Italians, what they do if they need grated or shredded cheese, they actually buy the block of the cheese they need to have shredded, and then they get it shredded or grated for them right in front of you at the store. It's not like prepackaged like we have or in the US.
Hey, let's move on from ingredients and talk about where we buy them here in Italy and the shopping experience. So how does grocery shopping here differ from shopping back in the US, and what do you hear from your students that they notice first?
It looks like an art gallery. Here, shopping is very different. I've adapted myself to the Italian way of life, and the culture is I go shopping if I can once every day. I buy the items that I need for the day. Buy less, but go more often. That's what I try to give to my students as well, is try to tell them, go and shop once every 2 days for, those next 48 hours. So you have more turnover in your fridge, you have less waste in general, because, there's that popular thing in the States where we do the, what do we call, like the week meal prep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where on Sundays and Mondays, they go out and do the shopping, and they do the food prep for like the whole week. They make the big batches and they break it up on, for the 6 or 7 days. I'm like, okay, cool. Now you're going to consume the things that you made on Monday. You're going to consume it on Friday and Saturday, or even Thursday. I'm like, that's not super fresh at all, actually. And maybe you don't know what you're going to do in the week. Maybe you have a birthday party that you forgot about. Maybe you're going to go out and watch a sporting event. Maybe you have something that comes unexpected. So maybe you're dropping 3 or 4 meals that you would eat at home because of one thing or another. And then you have more possibility of things going on the wayside and being thrown out. And so...
No. It was a huge lesson for us even to adapt. And I feel like sometimes we still struggle with it, that we're throwing food away because we forget that because there's no preservatives and everything is so fresh that things are rotting, 48 hours later after we bought it. And we're like, oh gosh, again.
And the biggest thing is people get so afraid of, oh my gosh, there's mold. Oh, it's disgusting. And I'm like, no, that is like the most natural thing in the world is mold. Okay. When things go bad and rot, that's natural. It's okay. I mean, don't eat it. Okay. But, we should be happy that those things go moldy. When you buy a thing of strawberries and you put them in your fridge, and after 10 days, God forbid, 2 weeks, it's still in there and they still look like the same strawberries from 2 weeks ago, you should definitely not consume them. And who knows what's inside of them. Yeah. I mean, going to the grocery store more often, buying less every time, making sure you have that good turnover in your fridge, in your pantry. But also it kind of gives you like, hey, like today and tomorrow, I would like to try to make this and this and this. So.
I mean, this is exactly how you're displaying the 2 different lifestyles. The one lifestyle in the US, always busy on the go. We talked plenty about that. But, speaking of strawberries, They're just coming on season here in Italy. They're just like from maybe end of May until about mid-July or so. And then depends on what the variety is. So you can only buy strawberries then. In the US, you have them year round, right?
Oh, yeah.
So now that changed, or they had to change your way that you cook. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
That's where I've really pushed myself over the last couple of years, and, making sure to, month by month, every 4 week, 6 week window, however it is, really making sure that even if I can't, economically wise, can't go to the farmers markets every single time I want to go to the grocery store, because you just can't afford it. But at least at the supermarkets, knowing what to buy at that moment to use. I mean, right now I think the fall winter time is almost like the mecca for food ingredients.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Our fall episode, we talked about, I think, only about the food every other sentence. It was, well, it's pretty outside, but then there's the food. And and then we went and did this activity, but don't forget there's like the truffles.
Because, you have everything from your cabbages to your broccolis to your bitter salads, your greens, your beets, Swiss chards, even the things that you normally think about, the carrots and potatoes and onions and garlic, which are you should actually use them as your like main star ingredient in a dish instead of just using them as like your mirepoix, because these are what should be consumed right now. When you talk about fruits, you talk about stone fruits, you talk about your pears and your apples, your kiwis, persimmons, chestnuts. It's okay that things shouldn't be in the grocery stores 12 months out of the year, because when they're in right now, that's when you should buy them.
let's move on. So, we've talked about the shopping and the ingredients, and I think, but there's even more overarching, just a different mindset in Italy about food and food culture. And how would you describe Italians' relationship with cooking and food? And has your relationship changed, regarding it since you've been in Italy?
Oh yeah, that's like I touched about before. They don't just revolve around food, but food revolves around them, and that's something that I try to offer to anyone who's willing to listen. If they're students or if they're my clients, they really put food on the forefront and on the front burner in their day in and day out life, because that's just how their life is, which is right. I think it's because other cultures, and maybe us from the States, is no kitchen pun intended, but we've actually pushed food onto the back burner, and we don't really care what we are ingesting. Food is just an energy source, and it's kind of sad because the difference between what we call eating and feeding is, feeding is what any animals do just to consume food, just to go move on. And eating is what human beings do, is they grow, harvest, cook, share food. And we're the only species that does that. But that's why I like the Italian culture, because they still put the importance of food at the forefront, and making sure that they make it, making sure that they have bought it, making sure that they are cooking it, and eating with the people that they love, their family. They are taking the time out of their day to experience the food, or what food does for us.
I love that. And we talk about it quite a bit, and I talk about it with my clients, and the difference in approaching food and restaurants here in Italy. And some of my clients are like, oh, we'll just find food as we happen upon it. And then there are others more along, I guess, my foodie mindset and Davide's of, let's plan the day around the food we're going to eat, where we want to go. It's such a forefront. And we're like, okay, let's cover the restaurants first. It's so important that we have good restaurants. They're, reserved, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do. And, I love that mindset, but also it kind of leads me, as I think about this, like authentic, finding authentic food. And I wanted to ask you, as a chef now living here for all these years, how would you describe authentic Italian food, and, your advice for people choosing a restaurant? Because I feel like that word has a different definition for a lot of people.
Yeah, well, authentic, like for me, is it just depends on where you live, and what region you're in, what that population or that region, town has done for generations and generations, what they've have passed down. Trying to define authentic is trying to find at the heart of where you're at, trying to find the let's say originality of said place, and trying to eat what they've always eaten for generations at a time.
Yeah, no, some of my Tanya's clients, they want to experience the authentic food, right? Yeah. So we send them to restaurants we think they have authentic food in that region or in that location they are at. When you walk around in your town and you want to pick a restaurant, and I want authentic food, how do you go about that? How do you go about choosing a restaurant for that? What are your red flags? What are your green flags?
Red flags, when you see a menu that has more than, 20 items on it, when you have to flip, 4, 5, or 6 pages to see the enormous amount of options that you have given to you. I like to go to trattorias. I like to go to osterias, little places that try to find where, again, going back to what I said before, is trying to go back to where the locals go to.
No, I totally agree with that. And what I also think is, eating authentically is important, trying to building in those experiences. But what I really gravitate to and really want to incorporate into most itineraries is a cooking experience, as part of their travel experience. And, what's your opinion on that? And, why everybody should do this kind of a cooking class? And, what can they expect from a cooking class and what to get out of it?
Well, I pushed for people to do that because, you talk about, like a country that is, one of like, if not the, or, top 2 or 3, food meccas in the world. And you want to understand and get the most out of your experience or your time there is you go and you try to find a cooking class. Super common ones here is fresh pasta. You see anyone and everyone doing tagliatelle with ragu, so on and so forth. But I think trying to find any place that offers cooking classes, cooking experiences, you name it, that revolves around, whether it being fresh pasta, whether it making, their, classic antipasti, appetizers, trying to find the way to understand how to make that quote unquote authentic dish or dishes, instead of, there's the internet, you can find hundreds of thousands of authentic dishes on there, but you never really know which one is true. And so immersing yourself into these experiences, these cooking classes is the best because, you're able to do it. And more times than not, you're going to do it with someone who, is born and raised there, said Italian, or someone who has who has acclimated to their society and lifestyle, like myself.
Okay, so the next question that we had was, so we did a cooking class. We did one in Sicily. We did one in Campania. We did one here in Tuscany. Actually, a couple here in Tuscany. What are some of the dishes that your clients are getting really excited about?
To be completely honest, the dishes are anything from any style of fresh pasta. I think people really, if they have the patience, pizzas. They want to know as many types of pasta sauces that they can, as possible.
Yeah.
People say, well, I want to learn a pasta sauce. I'm like, well, which one? Like, I can create 5,000 different types of pasta sauces. You got to be a little bit more specific. We only know as, like Americans, we know like the classic or staple, whether they're actually real or not, sauces. But yeah, they want that pasta. You come to Italy, you want pasta, you want pizza, you want focaccia, you want pasta sauces and everything in between. Those, what I've seen from clients and foreigners and stuff like that, that's what they want.
So now after cooking with hundreds of travelers, what do they remember the most? And as you're talking about sauces, I think for me, and I guess I learned this early on in my relationship with Davide and his Italian mother, is that you can get tomato sauce, fresh at home, and it doesn't come out of a jar with, the name ragu on it. But that's kind of like learning that you actually can make fresh tomato sauce without a jar from the store. And I guess what other things do you think students take away, and what do they learn the most in their aha moments?
Well, I think that they're just blown away with the simplicity of things. And you don't need a lot of ingredients to make a final dish or to make a final sauce. I think, coming to an understanding where, I need for tomato, you think about a pomodola, the tomato sauce, and you don't really need more than, 3 ingredients. And it's, a good passed tomato, olive oil is key. And, then there's the divided line between those who use garlic and those who don't use garlic. And that's it, and sometimes, the basil is a yes or no. Sometimes it's at the beginning. I've learned many different methods of making a pomodola where, you get your pan ripping hot, put in the oil, put in one piece of garlic, let it get to the smoke point. You throw in your pasta tomato, you turn it off, you season it with salt, and then you're good to go. And I've from the simplicity of things to the most extensive amount. But I think my students, my clients come away with the aspect of it's really easy. It's really simple. And I think the overcomplicating things is something that, as a culture we've done. And so to realize how simple things are, is something I think that they take away from it the most.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of garlic and pasta and all that, let me ask you this: what do you think Americans do wrong when they prepare a pasta dish back home?
Oh, there's three things that I find that at least one of them do. Of the three, when they make pasta, they put in oil in the water for the pasta water. They when the pasta is ready, they strain out the pasta in a strainer over the sink, and the pasta water goes down the drain.
Yeah,
and overcooking the pasta. The three, at least one of them they do, at least. Oil in the water is a no-no because, you put in the oil and it creates a barrier between said pasta and said sauce you're going to mix it with. So They can't amalgamate and they can't become one entity. Throwing away the pasta water, now you're just throwing away your binder, your glue.
So these are great tips. I guess, again, I'm adding on to that. If somebody listening wants to cook more Italian style at home, like where should they start? And are there some key ingredients like they, are worth upgrading to get even in the US that would make a difference?
Key ingredients, flours.
I'd say olive oil, right?
Yeah, I would say, the key ingredients are olive oils. I would say your flours, even the tomato products, and the jars, when you talk about moody and stuff like that. There are certain things, Italians like garlic, but we don't put garlic on everything.
Speaking of that, what is the obsession of Americans with garlic? It's all kind of stereotyped in the movies and all that. The mobster movies, like they put always the garlic in there, and it's like I've never seen so much garlic put in a dish like in the US.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It has just been quote unquote Americanized, and they just have taken it and just run with it. And I don't know why. And garlic bread, or what Americans think about garlic bread, it doesn't exist here. The only thing that can exist from garlic bread is toasting your bread on the oven or in a toaster or on a grill, and then as it comes off piping hot, you take your piece of garlic and you just rub the garlic on the bread, like you just rubbing it as it starts to disintegrate, and that's their garlic bread. There's no like garlic butter, just like, melting butter with, like a whole head of garlic, and then you're just blending it together, and then, that's your spread, and with Parmesan cheese and parsley. And it's just like, it's over time, the traditional ways how the cultures have kind of combined and fused, and then have just been exaggerated. Lack of a better word, have been exaggerated. And, we like garlic. We just don't abuse it, I guess.
Yeah.
No, I would agree with that. And I guess then overall, is there one technique or mindset shift that immediately improves somebody's cooking when it comes to Italian cuisine?
Taste. You got to taste it. You got to, people, it's like, I think that like the classic thing is salting your pasta water. Okay. I tell people you have to salt your pasta water as if you're tasting it as salty as the sea. Okay. People say, "Oh, is it salty enough?" I don't know. Did you try it? No, try it. Like, taste it. Like, it's like you got to taste your stuff. You got to make sure that, is it okay for you? If it's okay for you, like, you got to understand yourself when you cook, because cooking, I never do cooking demonstrations because I don't agree with those, because I feel like people want to learn how to cook. They have to do it themselves. It's a hands-on gig. And you got to do it. You got to get your hands dirty, because you have to continuously taste and look and touch and feel with your food to understand how to go from point A to point Z. And, taste. If you would eat it, then it's okay to serve. Okay. So I tell people all the time, taste. Yeah.
Well, so, I'm a music producer as well. And I worked on music all day. And when I would be done with work, I would sit in the car and drive home, and what I would listen on the radio wouldn't be music, because I've listened to music the whole time. Now, as a chef, when you cook all day, I'm kind of curious, what do you cook when you get home for yourself, for comfort food or something like that?
Comfort food, my comfort food, I talk about a lot about, sustainability and, non-processed foods and so on and so forth. But, I have my comfort foods and now I've gravitated here and have changed to, the classic aglio olio peperoncino type of pasta dish where it's, the olive oil, garlic and hot pepper pasta.
Yeah.
But, I go back to what I want comfort food. I want like a weekend and, I break out the barbecue and I do my barbecued ribs. I like the Italian barbecue because it's very simple with, oil and lemon juice and the sticks of rosemary and sage. You're basting it while it's cooking and salt and pepper and that's it. But, sometimes I just got to go back to my roots and do that. The ribs that, I cook for a long time and with the marinade and, lots of flavor. And so, at the end of the day, it's like, and that's where I kind of go back to my, let's say, bread and butter of, when I want that comfort food is I go back to my origins. Obviously I've fused and I've integrated here. And so now mine have kind of shifted and molded, but I do have those, that, old comfort food that always brings me back home. PB&J's, peanut butter and jelly. I have a daughter who's 7 and, she's not a huge fan of PB&J's, but she is a fan of peanut butter and honey. So I'll take that
cool.
too. Yeah.
So now that's when you're cooking at home, but I mean, do you go out to eat, and what are your favorite dishes when you go out, or what do you look for in a restaurant to have something special that you don't want to maybe take the time to do yourself at home?
I do go out to eat, not very often, but I think it's important as chefs. That's where also we learn too, is by tasting others and kind of creating our own from seeing what other chefs in the area are doing.
Well, I'm getting hungry after all this talking about food. And, I think, to conclude the episode, I just really want to thank you for joining us, Matthew. I mean, I think for all of us that live here in Italy, food is a passion and a love. And, I hear it, how you talk about your career and your lifestyle here, both as a teacher and a chef. All of that passion and knowledge comes through. And, really thank you for taking the time to share it with us. I'm sure our audience is going to love it. And, let's just continue to eat well in Italy, right? I mean, we're so blessed to be here.
Oh, yeah. Never take anything for granted. Trust me. Just see those simple things, but, never take advantage of and granted for the things, that we have here and that we can find every day, all day, because you always think back about, especially us, about where we grew up from and how it's very different. And so I try not to take advantage of, always having a pasta in bianca, the white pasta with maybe some butter and Parmesan cheese on it. That's it. Like, that's
you mean Alfredo?
No, I'm not going to touch on Alfredo or chicken Parmesan either, So it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Wow. Well, that was a great conversation. I loved it because it really confirmed what we've been saying. Italian food isn't just about recipes or restaurants. It's about connection to the earth, to the people, to tradition.
Yeah, and what really popped out of that conversation is how he compared American food culture and Italian food culture. Going to the market, buying what's in season, and cook with what you have, and take time to eat with others. That's real Italian food culture.
Exactly. And it's also one of the easiest and best ways for travelers to participate and really feel a part of the local culture and understand why it was recognized by UNESCO.
Exactly. Wow. We are again at the end of an episode, at the end of this season, actually. But do you still got tips for us? Tips from Tanya.
Well, I'm going to break the rules a little. We're at the end of the season because, this entire episode is the tip. Everyone knows Italian food tastes amazing, but it's more than just about the food. What we really wanted to show today is that it's so much more than what's on the plate. It's culture, connection, history, and honestly, one of the best ways to truly understand Italy. So, what Matthew shared and what we've learned living here is why I so often encourage clients to include at least one hands-on food experience in their itinerary. There are so many ways to do that. You can go shopping in a local market. There are many food tours throughout the country. There's wine and food tastings, and so many types of cooking classes. There's pasta making, pizza making, gelato, tiramisu, even coffee courses. There's something for every interest and every comfort level. And the best part, it's not just educational, it's connective. You cook together with your friends and family, you laugh together, and then you sit down and enjoy what you made over a long meal. Those moments stick and really create the travel memories.
Yeah, exactly. So when you participate, not just eat, it changes everything. I mean, those are the experiences people talk about long after the trip is over.
Exactly.
Well, all right, it's time to bring this episode to a close and this season. First, a huge thank you to Chef Matthew Cook for joining us and sharing his perspective, and for reminding us that the heart of Italian cuisine isn't just what you eat, but how you eat and who you share it with.
Grazie, Matthew, and thank you all for listening. We hope this episode inspired you to think a little differently about food in Italy and how meaningful experiences like markets, cooking, and shared meals can really shape a trip. If that's the kind of travel you're dreaming about, I'm always happy to help you start planning.
And before we say goodbye, we want to wish all of our listeners a very happy holiday season. We'll be taking a short break to spend time with family and friends back in the U.S.
Yes, enjoy the season, eat well, and gather around the table with the people you love. We'll be back in February with more stories and inspiration for you.
Until then, continue to follow us on our Facebook page, Experience Italy with Friends, and our Amici Vacations Facebook and Instagram accounts.
Buon Natale.
Buon anno.
Auguri.
E buon appetito.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
We hope you've enjoyed Experience Italy with Friends. If you like the podcast, remember to follow us and leave a review letting us know what you found to be the most helpful. And if you want expert advice or assistance in creating your own immersive and authentic experience in Italy, visit us at www.amicivacations.com.